Hello, this is my project of my Game Boy Advance game. This was programmed in C and made to be used on the Game Boy Advanced hardware systems that Nintendo made in the early 2000s. Here we are including just a lot of the GBA. We have a GBA.h file, which just has a lot of definitions for key states and different values in memory, just so that it's easier to reference later on in the program. We set the screen size as well as defining RGB so that we can display things on the screen. We create a player value, which will take an X and Y. We create two players, a right player and a left player, and then we create a ball. This game is a Pong game, which just has two paddles, the left paddle and the right paddle, as well as a ball that will move in between, and it'll play. We have a clear background just so that we can wipe the screen after every frame so that we can draw a new frame with all of the actors moved. We define all of our buttons, what each button does. We have up and down for the left player, and the A and B buttons for the right paddle. Our draw image function is just a function that we can use to pass in some values so that we can just draw whatever we need to on the screen. And then finally the updates, which is what will update our game as we play through each frame. We have a small animation for the ball that it'll loop through, just a few frames. And then we have this here to move the ball in the to continue moving the ball in the direction that it's going. Here this is a large if statement to detect if the ball collides with one of the paddles. If it does collide, it plays a little song, which is just a couple of notes that play to signify it being hit. We have the modify Y and the modify X as well somewhere down here. And then we change the Y direction based on where it hits on the paddle. We have a small little equation here that'll determine, depending on what end of the paddle is hit, which direction and how fast it will be going in the Y direction. And then just a small part here, if it goes behind the paddles, it resets it back to the middle with the same velocity so that you can try to hit it again. As well as making sure it doesn't go off the screen. All of this here is for music. These are all note values. So they have the notes as well as the actual musical note it goes next to. We have a few songs. Sound is the sound effect that is used. The others are just other songs that were used. Play song loops through whichever one of these is passed to it, whichever array of these notes is passed through. And it'll just loop through while the game is being played. Initializing, which actually creates everything and puts it on the screen. Initializing the music to tell it everything that it needs to know. And then finally the main, we set the mode. There's a lot of different modes that the Game Boy uses, and so this is the one that we want, and so this is set properly. And we finally have the game loop where everything is run. We have a start screen, game state, which will play our start song, draw just the title image, and then wait for us to hit the enter key. While game state is 1, which is our game field, we have our game updates. We run our button inputs, and then we draw our 3 actors. And we limit the amount of frames per second that we have so that we can make sure that it's always running as smoothly as possible. Because the Game Boy Advance can be a little strange as it does its buffer. There's a chance that it can get off and you get a little bit of stuttering. This makes sure that that doesn't happen. Swapping buffers, this is with the mode that we have, which also allows for much smoother back and forth drawing. It just decides which buffer to display on the screen at each time. We have our textures here. We have the C code, which is a bunch of X values, as well as a small, just little picture that goes with it. So that's our ball. This is the code for our left bumper and the code for our right bumper, as well as the title screen. This one's a lot larger because it is a full image. All right, I will go ahead and run the program. I have an emulator here, which uses the files. We can go to recent here, starter game. We have our game. And you can see as we play this game, we can move the paddles back and forth. Right now there is no score being kept. But you can see the ball is animating, the screen is moving, and the ball bounces back and forth. Something that I do want to add is I want to be able to keep score in the game, because you can see now it just resets it to wherever it was. And that is my project.